Welcome to the One-Year Book of Mormon. A non-Mormon reads through the Book of Mormon. Mosiah 19, chapter overview. King Noah's army returns from unsuccessfully trying to find Alma and his followers. One of the soldiers, Gideon by name, revolts against the king. The Lamanites attack the city, causing King Noah to flee. One of Noah's sons is set up as puppet king over the city, with the city put under forced tribute of half of all they possess and produce year by year. King Noah is captured by the men of Gideon and burned alive. The Lamanites set up guards round the land so nobody can escape, and there is peace for 2 years. In verse 2, we're told that the forces of the king were small, having been reduced. Reduced by what? We're never told. Also, this makes it sound like the king had a standing army, but typically in ancient times, unless there were enough men to have a professional army, the army was simply a militia of all able-bodied men in the land. Verse 3 uses the term breathe out threatenings, which of course comes from Acts 9, verse 1, and Saul yet breathing out threatenings and slaughter against the disciples of the Lord. It's amazing how Alma, or whoever ends up being the writer of this, can have picked the exact phrase that would not appear until the King James Version was written some 1700 years in the future, maybe even more. Coincidence, huh? Verse 4 plagiarizes the Bible by saying that Gideon swore in his wrath that he would kill the king. This phrase is taken from Psalm 95:11, repeated in Hebrews 3:11, unto whom I swear in my wrath that they should not enter into my rest. This is God speaking. In addition to the plagiarism and taking the words of God and applying them to a man, we need to contrast this attitude of Gideon's to kill the king with David's attitude when he refused to lay a hand on King Saul, who, as king over Israel, was the Lord's anointed. Anyway, Gideon pursues the king, who runs into the aforementioned tall tower. Gideon catches up to the king and is about to kill him when the king sees the Lamanites in the land, so he begs for his life. Makes sense. Every able-bodied man to kill the Lamanites. If the king's dead, he can't fight. Verse 7 then has a difference between the 1830 and modern Book of Mormon. The modern has King Noah saying, for the Lamanites are upon us, and they will destroy us, while the original said, they will destroy them. Now, this isn't as big of a change as it sounds, because in reading the original, the them of whom Noah is speaking must be his people, and so would the us. However, the 1830 sounds a bit more noble, in that it makes Noah sound as if he's concerned primarily about the people and less about himself. Oh no, they're going to destroy the people. However, the next verse, in both versions, says that the king wasn't so concerned with the people as with himself, so including himself as us instead of them would indeed be preferable and a more consistent reading. But then consistency isn't a strong suit in the Book of Mormon. But even in the original, one could easily say that the king was saying them only to sound nice. The narrative continues by saying that with the Lamanites coming upon the land, the king commands his people to flee, which is the opposite of what would actually happen in ancient times with walled cities, and indeed does away with the whole reason for having walls in the first place. But to continue, the people flee, and the king commands his men to leave behind their wives and children, with some doing that but others refusing, choosing instead to die with their families than live without them. Those that don't abandon their families then call on their beautiful daughters to plead with the Lamanites for their lives and the lives of their families. The Lamanites, being charmed with the beauty of their women, agree on the condition that they give them half their possessions and half of all they produce in perpetuity. One of Noah's sons, Limhi by name, or Limhi, I'm not sure, is set up as puppet king. The perspective now shifts back to Gideon, and we're told that he sends men into the wilderness to find King Noah, but they can't find him or his priests, but do find some of the people who had fled the city. And these people, apparently the men who had abandoned their families rather than fight for them, had had a change of heart and decided to go back to the land of Nephi and find their families and get revenge if their families were dead or die trying. But the king wouldn't allow it, so they burned him to death, but the priests ran away and escaped. Gideon's men and these men tell each other what had happened since they fled the city. Then verse 24 says, after they ended the ceremony, what ceremony? Perhaps what is here meant is some antiquated use of the word ceremony and refers to the people talking to each other and rehearsing their stories to each other. If so, this is another word that needs updating for clarity, along with faggots. The narrative continues with the people promising to pay half of everything in tribute, and the Lamanites set guards round about the land, that he might keep the people of Limhi in the land, that they might not depart into the wilderness. And there is peace in the land for 2 years.